What's going on, everyone? Trying something a little bit different out for this video. We are going to talk about the end of BT7 format. BT7 format, kind of like this strawberry lemonade truly, where it tastes really good on the first sip, and then the more you drink it, the more you realize, damn, this is kind of bullshit. But nevertheless, we're gonna crack one out, we're gonna crack open a vibe, and we're gonna talk about BT7 because I have some thoughts about this format. Just from the beginning all the way towards the end, BT7 was a vibe. Was it a good vibe? I don't know, but it was a vibe nonetheless. So let's start off. Before the format even started, everyone was hyping up Yellow Hybrid. Bro, Yellow Hybrid is going to be the best deck. Bro, Jet Sophie, 1 cost healing. Bro, Shine Greymon. Bro, TK. And it ended up being not that good. Why is that? And I think there's a few reasons. Number one, people put too much stock into Japanese meta results. I think that's just kind of like a general trend. And I remember back when I played Yu-Gi-Oh, that would be the case too. And that's probably been fixed since, from what I know, Yu-Gi-Oh, the OCG and the TCG has been pretty much separated. So that's kind of how they fixed that problem. But here in Digimon land, we are playing the exact same cards, exact same sets, exact same rules. We're just like 3 to 4 months behind because shipping, for some reason, they can't get it figured out. Pour one out to the shipping containers. Chilling off the coast of Long Beach with our new Awakening boxes, pouring out for them. But yeah, I mean, people really don't put stock into how much different our metas really are. Like, yes, we get the same cards, but we get them at separate times. Like, for example, Japanese format got the Massamon and Imperial starter decks in BT7. We're not getting them until BT8 when our BT8 set comes out. So that means there's like an entire meta that we completely missed out on, you know? And not to mention the fact that the ban list came and nuked MDF and put Ice Wall to 1, which pretty much means that all the aggro decks that were getting gatekept by Ice Wall we're now allowed to see play. So that's why we see decks like Green or even Cherubi come out. And MDF let pretty much every even remotely slower deck that couldn't play that card come back into the meta. So, you know, there was no more One Memory Susanomon. There was no more Lilith Loop just eating you for your life and taking their 20-minute turns. And when they realize they fucked up somewhere and then they can't actually play the game anymore and beat you. And it's just really frustrating because then they win anyways on the next turn. It's really weird. So those two cards, I feel like, really made the meta like slow down quite a bit. And then there was also the Reinforce ban, which also kind of cut out Yellow Hybrid's legs from under it. And I've talked about this on this channel before. I think like every video in BT7, I'm like, Yellow Hybrid was hyped to be the best deck, ended up being not that good. And you know what? It's just such a sticking point, guys. Like, people really don't realize how much different our metas really are. And I kind of want to use that to segue a little bit into what I think BT8 is going to look like. Because people are saying Imperial Dramon best deck, Massamon top tier, X Antibody top tier. Is that going to hold true? Honestly, probably. Imperial Dramon is just a nuts deck. And I think this is probably like one of the few times where the best deck getting hyped into the format ends up being the best deck. I guess it did happen with Gabubond as well, and also happened with Lord Nightmon, but our metas were pretty similar at that point. There wasn't really much of a change. Like, for example, we never got the 3 HPD, 4 HPD Sarismon deck back in BT3 set 1.5. We never got to play with that. When HPD came out, it was pretty much already limited to 1. So, you know, kind of similar vibes, kind of a similar concept, similar, you know, these power cards getting hit to 1 really affects how strong these decks can be. So you just need to keep an eye out for that. Don't put too much stock even into, people are saying Yellow Hybrid is still good in BT8 with Ophanimon Chaos Mode, Rapidmon stuff, but you know, there's still only 1 Reinforce. I think that deck was carrying a little harder than we gave it credit for, and there's still no win button in Yellow Hybrid decks. Like, you can't MBF Susano. Like, a lot of decks were relying on that. Could you still play Susanomon? Yes, and people still do play Susanomon. But is it enough to get wins? Is Yellow Hybrid winning tournaments? No, it's not. Why? Because the deck everyone was sleeping on because like, oh, no more NBF. Like this deck is just too slow. It's not gonna be able to win. Blue hybrid. We can't talk about BT7 format without talking about blue hybrid. And I'm gonna segue this a little bit into also talking about one deck formats in general. So did BT7 turn into a one deck format? Strictly speaking, from results from the top events, DigiFest, Ulti Cup, yes, the majority of the top decks were blue hybrid. And if you are a tryhard and wanted to top, you were probably playing blue hybrid. And why did blue hybrid ended up being at the top? In fact, I think blue has been a top deck forever, and that's kind of besides the point. But actually is kind of part of the point as well. You know, blue has a lot of kind of BS cards. You know, Hammer Spark, BS card. I think we're all just used to it because it's literally been in the game since the very beginning. It was in like the first starter deck. So we're just used to like, oh, blue can just gain one memory whenever they want to. Or, you know, if you run into blue security, you can accidentally pass a turnover and screw yourself. Hammer Spark is just an insane card, guys. Absolutely insane, and it's still a 4. Ice Wall was BS too, and you know what? That card deserved to be at 1. That card is not BS at 1. And even still, if you draw it at the right time, it's absolutely cracked. So, you know, Ice Wall card deserved to go to 1. 1 Ice Wall is fine. Pour one out for Ice Wall. But in general, guys, blue is a problematic color. High draw power, high consistency, strong mid game, and you can take the deck in a lot of different directions. You know, the deck has a lot of good cards you can mess with, and I think that's why we saw it be especially powerful at DigiFest with the side decks, because the blue hybrid core is not that big. You know, you only have to run 4 Tommies, 4 Kumamons, 4 Korikakus, 4 Beowulfs, and then, you know, outside of that, the deck is kind of yours to play with. And I think that's why the deck ended up settling up on the 8 Floodgates, you know, Madoki, Siyakomon, and then the Strabimon from BT4, which is just an insane consistency searcher card. Then we got your Bokos to boost your consistency as well. And then, you know, Beowulfmon can just keep recycling your hybrids, which is something that the other hybrid decks can't do. I wish my Rhino Kabuterimon can put my Beetlemons back in my hand. How sick would that be? Or even my Metal Kabuterimons. That'd be so sick, dude. Just keep stunning stuff, keep suspending stuff. But nope, only blue gets to do that. And I think blue, there isn't really something you can side in versus blue that's like effective, just because there isn't like a anti-bounce floodgate, you know, whereas Madoki and Siyako can floodgate every other deck. So when something like that happens, when there's a deck that can do one thing really well, and that one thing also kind of counters itself. So, right, so blue can play floodgates and tempo out, right, and that's how they win games. And the only other decks that can play floodgates can't play both, right, unless they go out of color. And they can't tempo out as well as blue, which means that if you want to beat blue consistently, you're probably either playing a deck that doesn't interact on the board. So that's why we see decks like red and X Antibody have a pretty fair shot into blue, or sometimes purple can also high roll and be extremely uninteractive. Or you just play blue and you try to outvalue, try to outskill. If you're a good player and you practice your mirror match and you tech for mirror match, you know, you're running your Aqua Viper, you're running your Forbidden Trident, then I think you got a fair shot, dude. Like, you had a fair shot in the mirror. You grinded your 1,000 games of blue hybrid until you wanted to probably just jump off a cliff. I think you probably had it made, dude. You probably topped. If you went in an online tournament, you probably topped with blue hybrid. That's just how it is. But is it a one deck format? Yeah, it's a one deck format. And let's look about, okay, so the two formats that were pretty much one deck formats in this game, people will talk about Lord Nightmon and blue hybrid. People were saying Gabubond was a one deck format, but it ended up not, just because the Dioboromon deck kind of came out that was a pretty strong counter to it. So we saw Dioboromon topping during those last few regionals, getting some wins, farming some bad Gabubond players. The red deck had a shot at high rolling it. Jesmon had a shot at high rolling it. You know, you didn't have to play Gabubond to win in BT6 EX1 format. It was probably the easiest way to win, but it wasn't the only way to win. And you could say the same thing about this blue hybrid meta. You know, it's not the only way to win, but it's the easiest way to win. And when it comes to a major tournament with 8 to 9 rounds where you're playing online and your brain is turning to mush, you probably want to play the easiest deck to win. And the same thing kind of was true with Lord Nightmon, even though Lord Nightmon didn't see too much success. You know, guys, Lord Nightmon, despite everyone saying, oh, this is the best deck, nothing can stand up to Lord Nightmon, it didn't top that much. I think it only got one top, like towards the end of the format. Like 1 or 2 people actually topped with Lord Knight. And then it kind of ironically got a top at the beginning of BT7 format as well, when everyone was saying, Lord Knight is dead, Lord Knight is dead. Tangent, that's another thing about this game, is like people kind of just jump onto whatever the new set has, and they don't really consider the value that old decks still have, outside of a few fan favorite cards like Yellow War Greymon Never Dies, Imperial Dramon somehow always find a way to stick around. Of course, that's not counting the new starter deck stuff, which is pretty much a whole brand new deck. But, you know, just in general, Command Dramon always finds a way to kind of be the only deck people play on the Digimon 2020 Discord server. You guys ever play on the Digimon 2020 official Discord server? Look for random games on webcam. It's almost always some dude playing Command Dramon. Is it just me? Do I just always get the Command Dramon dudes? Is that just me? Anyways, you guys know who you are, and you guys know who I'm talking about too. There's Command Dramon dudes on that server. A lot of them. Are one deck formats bad? Well, why do we end up with one deck formats? That's a good question. So, I think it's a question of consistency, ease of piloting, and power floor. So what do I mean by that? So a deck's consistency, obviously that speaks for itself. How often does it get off its game plan over the course of several games? How often are you able to execute on your win condition? How easily are you able to get to it? That all adds up to a color's or deck's consistency, and blue is obviously amongst the most consistent colors. You have access to Upamon and Kiaramon as your eggs, which both let you draw very easily. You have Strabimon, which oftentimes lets you draw 2 cards off the top of your deck. You have Davis, which lets you dig 3 cards for a blue Digimon. You have just Tommy and the hybrids, which let you consistently stun stuff without having to commit too many resources. Sora Joe, which allows you to gain an unfair amount of memory very easily because its condition is laughable, especially in blue hybrid. You have Bokomon, of course. That's kind of a wash, though, because any hybrid deck can play Bokomon, but that's kind of besides the point, guys, isn't it? So, yeah, it's just consistency there. And then we have to talk about how easy is the deck to pilot. I would say blue hybrid, on a scale of 0 to 10, it's about a 4. It's about a 4 to pilot the blue hybrid deck adequately. There's definitely room, especially in the mirror match, to, you know, increase the way and your efficiency and your effectiveness with the deck through practice. You know, how to commit your resources, when to commit your resources, committing the least amount of resources to make the most effective play possible. You know, saving cards in your hand, knowing when to go with Beowulfmon, knowing when to just swing with Korikakumon. Stuff like that, guys. Stuff like that. When to play your Madoki so it's most effective, you know, stuff like that. But I think just as a base level, you can kind of just play your cards and you'll probably win out, because blue hybrid just kind of does that, guys. Blue hybrid, you kind of just go Tommy into Korikaku. You kind of just swing. You kind of just stun their guys and attack, and they can't attack you back. That's just what the deck does. That's just what happens when you play the cards in that deck. It just be that way sometimes, you know? And by sometimes, I mean all the time in blue hybrid. It just be that way all the time. And then we have to talk about the power floor, which is kind of right up there with what I was talking about piloting abilities, is that, you know, you can give a new player a blue hybrid deck, explain to him the basic rules of the game and what your keywords are, and he's probably going to win games. Just the deck will carry you. The deck will carry you, and it is definitely carrying people, myself included. I can't win without blue hybrid. You know, I can play green hybrid okay, but that's just because I like to play that deck. But if I'm trying hard, I'm playing blue. I'm playing blue, and I'm letting it win me games. Because, you know, in a tournament, sometimes you just don't want to think that much, dude. You just want the deck to win for you and then just move on. That's kind of just what you want to do. So when a deck can do that, obviously more people are going to be gravitating towards that deck. And when more people gravitate towards that deck, that means that there's just going to be a higher rate of that deck topping. When there's a higher rate of that deck topping, that means that you can expect other people to copy those lists. It's kind of like this self-fulfilling prophecy where the more a deck tops, the more it will top because people will just copy it and then have enough success with it to top with it. That's just how it works. That's how it works in every card game. Net decking is just a thing that you have to deal with. It is very real, and there's nothing wrong with it. You know, I'm not going to bash on net deckers here in this video. I have no problem with net decking. I think it's perfectly reasonable. You still have to play the deck, you know what I mean? You can copy 50 cards, you know, sleeve them up, take them to your locals, and play like shit and bust her out. Or you can actually learn how to play the deck, put the time in, you know, get good, and win. And you know what? That's kind of the point of the game, is to win. You know, unless if you're a for fun player, then be my guest, dude. Everyone likes to play for fun. I'll build 4 fun decks and play the shit out of them, dude. I don't care. But I'm just saying, guys, you know, if you want to win and people want to win, they're going to play the best deck. They're going to play the deck that topped. Same thing with Lord Knight. You know, Lord Knight was kind of ahead of its time. It was the first Digimon deck that could, you know, play guys out for free, attack and gain tempo. You know, they could attack and prevent you from attacking by deleting your guys. Very, very similar ideas there. And I think, you know, if we look at the one deck formats in this game, you know, it was Blue Hybrid, Lord Knightmon, a little bit Gabu Bond, a little bit. That was more an Ice Wall problem. But, you know, you have to. It's been 2 blue decks and a yellow deck. And I think those colors they're a little problematic, guys. A little problematic. You know, healing is kind of a BS ability, BS keyword. Yeah, it's just blocker, but better. If you guys think about it, it's blocker with the chance to get a free option out. You know, that's pretty crazy. If you really think about it, that's kind of what healing is. And then blue is just uber consistent. You know, they have Hammer Spark, they have ways to draw, they have an Ice Wall, they have multiple ways to play out their deck. You know, there's cards that you can side in if you're playing side decks. If there's no side decks and you're just playing with mulligans, and the deck is uber consistent, will literally never whiff. It's pretty crazy, guys. And personally, this is going to be a hot take here, guys. Hot take. I do not mind one deck formats. I think they're fine. And people will disagree with me. They'll be like, but Joel, what about my diversity? My diversity. I need every color in the top, otherwise the game is not good. I just don't think that's ever going to be like a real thing, guys. I just really don't. As soon as one major tournament starts and people are just going to copy the top decks, it's going to cycle into itself. And then, you know, we ended up with like 1, 2, 3 top decks at the most. Is it going to be as bad as this format? Probably not. I will say next format, it's probably looking like a lot of Imperial Dramon, which, by the way, is a blue deck. By the way. Gee, I wonder how that happened. The blue deck is going to be the best deck of the format again. I wonder how that happened. I don't know what to tell you guys. I asked you guys actually, what do you guys think about one deck formats? What do Digitamer Joel viewers think about one deck formats? Let's pull up the comments here. We have G Lamb saying, I like a healthy balance of competition, but not too diverse. A nice rock, paper, scissors style meta is my favorite. You know what, G Lamb? I think I'm inclined to kind of agree because, you know, asking for too many decks, asking for a super diverse meta is probably not going to happen. But like a rock, paper, scissors type thing where you're like, okay, this deck beats this deck, but this deck beats this deck, and then that deck beats the first deck. I think that's perfectly reasonable because then you can just kind of pick your poison, you know? You can just say like, okay, this is the deck I like playing the most. This is my good matchup. This is my bad matchup. I can expect about the majority of my matchups to be these 2 other decks and the mirror, and that lets you practice really effectively. And the problem when there's too many viable decks is that practice kind of goes out the window. You know, you can't really predict the meta. You can't really tech appropriately. You know, there's an element of skill that kind of goes out the window when there's too many viable decks. You know, when it's a 2 or 3 deck format, you know, you can reasonably expect what you're going against. You can tech appropriately. You can practice effectively. You know, it ends a special element, extra skill, some extra spice to the game. You know, it lets you really feel like you got a big brain when you come out on top. Whereas opposed to like a diversity, like a huge, like, you know, I don't know, like every deck is viable format. You know, you're kind of just rolling dice at that point. You know, you don't know if you're going to go against a bad matchup. You don't know if you're going to go against a good matchup. Maybe you don't even know the matchup at all. You know, some guy just owns up with, I don't know, Waymon and starts clapping your cheeks with Tidal Wave into Ancient Garurumon. I don't know, man. Like, it's possible. I mean, why not? If every deck is viable, then, you know, you have to be ready for every card. And that's just a lot of info to take in, dude. You can't reasonably expect to practice for all that, you know? You kind of just have to try to play your own deck and hope that's enough to get you there. Which is, I think it's a plus of a 1-deck format. In a 1-deck format, if you don't want to play the 1 deck, then at least you know what the majority of the field is going to be playing, and you can try to homebrew around that. You know, I think we saw there was a really cool red deck I saw top an Ultimate Cup, which was running 4 copies of Metal Greymon Alterous mode and no Emperor Greymon. So I guess the object of that deck was just to build a really huge stack in Raising area with a bunch of Greymons. You know, Alterous mode can digivolve over level 5 for 1, even in Raising. You just build a huge stack in your Raising area, bust out your Ancient Greymon, and then swing for 10 checks or whatever. You know, and, you know, it's just super uninteractive. Can't get sword stripped by blue. You kind of just chill in your Raising area, play, you know, some mid-game control with your red destruction effects, and then bust out a Raising and swing for game. You know, I think that's a cool strategy. We saw that come up. The Cherubimon deck, that's got a fair shot into blue and yellow. People were still playing yellow, but I think a lot of people just kind of dropped yellow after seeing how shit it is to play in a long tournament. Just go to time every game, feels super bad. But yeah, I think 1-deck formats are interesting because it presents a puzzle. You know, this is what you're going against. How do I beat it? Either you practice the shit out of the mirror and you become super good at playing that, or you find a way to construct another deck that can beat the most popular deck. And I think that's a really unique puzzle in and of itself. It's a big point for 1-deck formats, in my opinion. If you're someone who enjoys competition and trying to be the best and trying to have practice that is able to be reflected in your results, I think 1-deck formats are really good for that, because you can really show off your skill set. You can really show off your practice when it's a 1-deck format. All right. Thank you, G-Lam. Went on a little bit of a tangent there, but it's kind of what this whole video is about. This video, we're just vibing. We're just talking about BT7 stuff. All right. Let's go to Avocado Loco, longtime sub of the channel. He's always in the live streams. I want to give a shout out to him. He says 1-deck formats are boring. Having everyone play 1 deck in a tournament and or facing the mirror all day is just plain boring. I guess it'd be only interesting if the deck was complex, had many ways to build it, or had multiple win conditions. But when it's just hybrid for game, then I think it leaves people wanting more. I also think every color in Digimon/Magic the Gathering or typing in Pokemon, etc. in a TCG should have a viable, strong deck, or at least have ways to deal with a tier 0 deck. So I want to especially hit upon that last point. Every deck should at least have a way to deal with a tier 0 deck. I think that's kind of like the big pain point of this blue hybrid meta right now, is that blue hybrid has a way to deal with your deck, but you don't necessarily have a way to deal with their deck. You know, there isn't any way to stop bouncing outside of, you know, digivolving to level 5. And then once you do that, you are in danger of getting sword stripped and stunned out for the rest of the game. So, you know, it blue hybrid presents a question that doesn't really have a good answer to it. And that's the most frustrating part of the deck. And that's the part where I will agree that the deck probably needs to get toned down to peg. How would you do that? I'm not exactly sure. You know, if you get rid of Tommy, the deck is completely unplayable, just goes in the trash. And, you know, that's not really fair to that deck either. You know, I guess you could put Tommy to 2 or 3, but Bandai hasn't been doing that. It's either 1 or nothing so far. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle this problem if it continues into the future. Or maybe, you know, they just introduce some cards that can play around these stun effects, which they have in DNA Digivolution, because that completely plays around stun. When you you DNA Digivolve, you know. Your Pilodramon can swing even if your XVmon got stunned. So that's pretty sick. So I think we'll see some answers in BT8 meta. You know, I think Blue Hybrid, people are probably going to still be playing it, especially at the beginning of the format. I think Floodgates are very powerful because people tend to get really greedy with their builds. And I think a lot of people are like letting it rip with the memory boosts in early BT8 builds that I've been seeing. You know, like 4 memory boosts per deck, pretty large. You know, if you're running 4 Madoki Betamons, you can really shut those cards down, which is definitely something to think about. All right, thank you, Avocado Loco. And we'll go to Jacob Monk, who says, it gets old very quick without variation. Everyone seems to just copycat what wins tournaments rather than playing what is fun or what they like. One guy at Locals last week said he was sick of playing against Blue for 4 out of 5 rounds, but then I realized he too is playing Blue. Oh, NPC vibe. That's an NPC type beat. Oofa. Well, you know what? Does it get old? Yeah, you know, that's why the meta switches up every 2-3 months. Does it suck that we got, you know, delayed by a month for BT8? Yeah, but, you know, it's a personal choice to play Blue Hybrid, you know. That's, you know, I'm going to go on another tangent here. Don't play a deck because you want to win and then say that, oh, winning is boring, or, oh, sorry for playing Blue Hybrid, bro. Don't be sorry, dog. You picked the deck. If you're really sorry, you wouldn't have picked it. Just say you want to win and move on. You know? Don't apologize. There's nothing wrong with playing Blue Hybrid, dog. Like, is it a strong deck? Yeah. Is it kind of unfair for the opponent? Yeah. But, you know, if you're choosing to play that deck, then you're making that conscious decision. You know it's a little unfair. You know it's the best deck. Like, just say you want to win. Just say, yo, I'm playing Blue Hybrid because I want to win. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, the deck is competitive. If you're going to Locals and you're paying $8 entry fee, you know, $8 to $10, however much your local costs, you deserve to try to win so you can make back your investment. You know, don't be the guy who goes to Locals every day just throw away $8. I mean, if you want to be that guy, you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, right? Like, if you want to just like go to Locals every week with, I don't know, Waymon, no one's going to stop you, man. No one's going to stop you, especially the guy playing Blue Hybrid. He's not going to stop you. He's going to, you know, run into you round 2 and be really excited to go 2-0 and then move on in like 20 minutes. Like, that's just the truth, guys. That's just the truth. Pour one out for Waymon. No. All right. So this video's kind of gone on long enough. Kind of giving you some, just a little bit of a rant here on BT7. Just kind of, let's call it sunsetting BT7 type rant, type talking to you guys, type, you know, just checking in. Haven't made a video in a while. I did do a BT8 set review, but didn't really feel how it turned out, so I'm probably going to redo it for you guys and post that up later this week now that the last Ulti Cup has officially finished. We are going to then put up some TTS. I'm going to print out some actual proxies. I spent $70 on printer ink. That was sick. I'm going to print out some proxies, and we're going to do some IRL games, BT8, before the set even drops. It's going to be crazy. Got some Armor Rush, got some Imperial Dramon, got some Mastamon coming at you guys soon. Before the set drops, you know, we're going to give you everything you guys need to get ready for the new set. And if you guys still like BT7 content for this next 3 to 4 weeks, follow me on Twitter at DigitamerJoel. I'll be posting my BT7 locals list. I just went 3-1 this weekend with full green hybrid. Got a hot tech in there for you guys. If you guys want to see it, check it out on Twitter at DigitamerJoel. All right. So, yeah, kind of went a little bit everywhere in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys sticked around. And if you did, then I love you and GG's.